today I'm going to try two things that are completely new to me, and hopefully they're going to make the quilting process a bit easier. This is the wadding that I've been using over the last few years. I've been sticking to this one. It is the 80% cotton, 20% polyester batting by Hobbs Heirloom, and it's really lovely. I really enjoy using this. In the past I've used really cheap polyester battings, waddings, and they've never worked out very well, so I really like this one and I'm definitely sticking to using it, but I've bought a different version of it and I'm going to try that out today. So I've actually bought the same wadding, but this one is the fusible version, and I really think that this could be, if it works out well, a game changer for me. I used to baste my quilts with pins, and then I was having problems, which I've since realised it was because of the cheaper wadding I was using. But after moving on from pins, I started using this 505 spray all the time. But it is great, but I've had a few problems with it in that obviously you need to be in a well ventilated area, and also I've had it mark the backing of my quilt because it hasn't sprayed evenly, and I've had a little problem with that. I haven't washed that particular quilt yet, so hopefully when I do that will wash out, because it is a spray that is supposed to wash out. But that's why I'm really keen to try a fusible wadding, and just to see if that works best. So today I'm going to compare the ordinary wadding with pins and the fusible wadding without pins and see which one quilts the best. So I'm trying another new method today as well. For both of these quilts, I'm going to baste them on this table. I'm not going to spread everything out on the floor and tape down the backing fabric and then layer it up from there. I'm going to do it on the table, which I've never done before, but I'm thinking it's got to be a better way than getting down on the floor. So here is my backing fabric, which I have pieced together. And I'm now going to layer it up with the wadding and then the quilt top. I'm going to layer it up with the fusible wadding, and we're going to try that first. Now it's really interesting to read the back of the pack of the wadding actually, because it tells you that you can layer up your quilt and then press it with the iron and then flip it over and press it again if you need to, and that you can pull back the fabric and flatten it out and try again if you do get some puckers and wrinkles. So that's really reassuring and good to know. So fingers crossed that this goes well. Now I haven't fully unrolled it yet, it's still folded a few times, but before I get that far I am straight away concerned about this. It's very wrinkled, and I just hope that when I do separate it out it isn't going to rip. It's very stiff. It is completely different to the regular wadding, so I was positive at first and now I'm just not so sure. Wow, it's really big. I didn't realise how big that was going to be. I've opened it all out now. It might not look like it, but it is all opened out flat. And those wrinkles don't seem to be anywhere near as much of a problem as I thought it was going to be. They seem to have really reduced. There still are some wrinkles, but it's reduced, and I think once the iron presses it, it will be okay. So now I'm going to try and get everything nice and straight and laid up nicely, flat, put the quilt top on top and then get pressing with the iron, and fingers crossed this goes to plan and I don't ruin my Liberty quilt. So this is what we've got so far. We've got the backing fabric central seam here lined up with the centre of the quilt widthways, and then we've got our wadding here and the quilt top here, and it's as straight as I can get it at the top. I'm on this top row and I'm going to press this from the centre one direction and then the other direction before I then roll it up and move on to the next row of the quilt, and that's how I'm going to tackle it. Now I'm sure there are lots of other methods So if you're thinking about doing this, definitely do a bit of research and have a look around, but I'm going to try this way and see how it goes. Wish me luck. Okay, I have thoughts. I've done almost the first row and I have some thoughts on this. First of all, I don't like the smell, but it's not super strong, but I don't like the smell of it. That does put me off. However, this block has come out so flat, and I did flip it over before, and I will show you later on when I've done more of it. But I had some puckers on the back and they were really easy to iron out. So I feel like this has potential. I feel like this could work. So I'm going to carry on working on the rest of it and then I'll show you when it's done. Okay, I just want to point out as well that I have put my large wool pressing mat underneath and I'm just going to press on that now so I'm not going to damage my cutting mat. I think that's really important. So I'm 2 rows in, I'm just about to do this row and I just want to show you the back. It's pretty good, it's quite flat. Some of it isn't stuck so I will need to go over it again, but I'm optimistic for how this is going to turn out. It's still a workout, my back's hurting a bit. I'm tired already and I've only done 2 rows. I've got 3 left to do. So it is still a workout, but much better than being on your knees. So thumbs up for table basting, so far so good. And thumbs up for the fusible wadding as well. I think really all I don't like is the smell. But apart from that, it seems good. So it's many hours later. I have had a couple of hours break in the middle of this to do things I had to do. But unfortunately, this is not working because I'm finding that it isn't sticking. I've pressed the front, the quilt top all over twice and I've flipped it over to concentrate on the back and then as I've flipped it back over again to check the front, look what's happened. It's just not stuck, and I've done this bit and I don't know why. It even says on the packet you can reposition it, but I haven't even needed to do that. It's just, I pressed it all and it was stuck and now it's not. So I think I've reached a point where I need to stop for today, do something else and revisit this tomorrow. Now, this video has very kindly been sponsored by Serious Readers. Now, I've been working with Serious Readers for about 2.5 years now, and I absolutely love their Serious Lights range. At home, I have the floor standing high definition model, and here in the studio, I have the same one, but this one is the tabletop cordless high definition light. I'm really enjoying using this cordless model. It's fantastic because I can pick it up and move it to wherever I need it in the studio. So for example, if I need to do some cutting over on the cutting table, then I can take my Serious Light over there, and because it's cordless, I don't need to worry about anything. I can move it to the middle of the table and have it here when I'm sewing. So it's just so versatile and so useful having the cordless version. One thing that's really good as well is it only takes 2 hours to fully charge and then the battery life lasts for 7 hours. And if you're not sure how much battery power is left in the light, then you can switch it on and then just hold down the power button and then the little LED lights at the back will light up to show you how much power is left. If you're interested in finding out more about the Serious Lights range, then you can find a link in the description box below, and if you use the code EMMA24, that will get you £100 off any high definition light and also free delivery. And it's also worth noting in the description box that there is a link to a competition that Serious Readers are running this summer. It's open to UK entrants only. You just have to fill out some details and then you will be entered into the competition, and there are some fantastic prizes, so it's definitely worth checking that out. So a massive thank you to Serious Readers for sponsoring today's video. It's weeks and weeks later now, I'm not at home anymore, I'm in the studio, and you'll be pleased to know I've managed to get that quilt basted. I realised what the problem was and why everything wasn't sticking, and now it's all ready to be quilted. Let me show you. So here it is. It is all ready. The top is stuck, the backing is stuck, and everything is ready and it's rolled up like this, and that was the problem. I think the weight of the quilt was pulling it down and causing it to become unattached because I wasn't rolling it well enough. I was just spreading it out. So what I've been doing a section at a time, leaving the iron on for longer, really giving it a good press, and then rolling it up and also rolling it at the side as well, so the weight wasn't dragging it down, and everything seems really good now. You can see it's stuck and it is ready to be quilted. So I'm going to quilt this one on my machine, and I'm just going to do diagonal lines through the blocks right down the middle of each block, of each set of squares I should say, right down the middle of each one. I'm going to quilt it like that. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the borders. I might just stitch in the ditch for those. Really glad to have this one ready. I have been quilting away, and I have done quilting in the borders of between the blocks. So what I've done is it's difficult to see because I've quilted it in white thread, but 2 lines just 1/4 of an inch away from the seams on the horizontal and the vertical borders between the blocks. Now before I actually quilt the blocks, I'm just going to check over the back to check that there are no puckers. The top of the quilt is quite flat. I think I just had a couple of places where there was a little ripple in it, but it's nothing major. I'd say the fusible wadding is a winner as long as the back's okay. So I'll just have a little look at that. So I've checked over, and there's only one place on the whole of the back that there is a little pucker, which is here. And luckily it's right on the edge, so all I need to do is just unpick these stitches here. It's only a little bit, about 1 inch or so, and then I'll be able to smooth and flatten that out and just re-sew it. So not a huge problem. I'm really pleased with that. It turned out really quite nice on the back. You can't see it very well because I've used a matching thread. So I'm going to fix that little part and then quilt the blocks diagonally. So here is the first quilt all quilted, and I must say it's gone alright. There are a couple of places where it's a little bit wrinkly or couldn't quite get it flat, but it'll do. I think this fusible wadding is okay. I quite liked using it. The smell, I think, was the thing I didn't enjoy the most. There are a couple of bits on the back because it did come unstuck again. I could have gone back to the iron and re-applied it, but I didn't notice until it was a bit too late. So you can see the edges are not stuck anymore. But other than that, pleased with that one. So that's one quilt down, another one to go. Obviously I've got the binding to do on this one. It's just got that lovely squishy quilt texture though, it's really nice. So I'll do the binding in another video. Let's move on to quilt number 2. So the backing fabric for this quilt is really big. I had to sew 3 pieces together to get it big enough, so it's a real patchwork backing fabric. I decided to lay it out on the floor first, and that was because I wanted to spread everything out and get the layers nice and straight before I transferred it to the table, because when you do it on a table you can only work with a section at a time. And what I did was I taped the sides of the backing fabric to the table so I could get it nice and taut, and then I used some pins and I pinned all of the layers together. I made sure to put my cutting mat underneath to protect my tabletop, because when you're putting the pins through they will inevitably touch whatever surface you've got underneath, and I didn't want scratches on my table, so I used the cutting mat to protect it. Another thing I did was I used an iron and I gave the quilt top a really good press, and then afterwards I flipped it over and gave the backing fabric a really good press as well, just to keep everything nice and flat. I repositioned a couple of pins as well, and overall everything ended up really flat, and I was really pleased with how this basting process went. I think table basting worked really well. Every time you've finished with a section, you just have to unstick it at the sides, roll up your quilt and slide everything along to work on the next section. And I found this really easy to do. It wasn't a problem at all, and I definitely prefer this to working on the floor. So table basting worked really well on this quilt. Everything is pretty flat. I've put quite a lot of pins in. Whether it's enough or not, we'll see. But I have the quilt all rolled up. It's very tempting to hand quilt this one, but in reality I just won't have time to move on to other things that I need to do. So it is going to be machine quilted, but I'm going to use a decorative thread in the top of the machine. So I really love hand quilting with Wonderfil fruity thread. I stock quite a lot of colours of this in my online shop, and I'm just deciding now which one to use. I think that one is too similar to the background. This one would be a real contrast, but I don't think it goes. This one is shades of black and grey. I just don't think it really goes with the colours. So it's really difficult to pick. There are so many lovely colours, and what I love about the fruity is that it is variegated, so you get a variety of colours. But I think I'm going to opt my absolute favourite shade of fruity, which is called Shell. So this is a light pink with little, it's white and pink really. I think there's a touch of green in it. It's just a really lovely colour. So it's not going to stand out a lot, it's just going to tone in with everything, but you'll see it in some places. So my quilting plan for this one is just diagonal through the squares again, but I'm going to stitch about 1/4 of an inch or maybe 1/2 an inch, probably a presser, whatever the presser foot is on the walking foot, just around the edge of each flower, because I think that will look nice with the decorative thread. I'm now thinking I'm going to choose this one, and I'm going to do my bobbin thread in this pink colour because the backing fabric is pink. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use this one for the top thread and this one for the bobbin. So I've quilted a few of the blocks on the machine now, just the blocks that are the 9-patch blocks, and I really like how the stitches are coming out. They're nice and big and chunky, and there's a variegation in the colour because of the thread. So you've got the lilac here and then it goes pinkier. I think if you like the look of hand quilting but don't have the time to do it, then this is a really good option because it looks nice and chunky and decorative. It's like big stitch hand quilting, not the fine hand quilting, but it's a good option. Let's have a look at the back. No puckers, everything's quite nice and flat. The pinning is working quite well. I know I mentioned before I was going to do a machine stitch around here, but I realised as soon as I put the quilt on the machine it's too big. Moving in all the directions, moving the quilt just be so tedious. So I think I'm going to hand quilt just around the edge here. Now those stitches will look different to these because hand quilting is a running stitch. It's not going to look like that, so there will be a difference, but I don't mind that. I think it's just going to add to its homemade charm. comparing the two types of wadding, there's not a lot of difference in it really. I think a good combination might be using the fusible and pins together, whereas I just used the fusible on this. I didn't use any pins and it did come unstuck in places and cause me a little bit of an issue. Whereas this one, everything seemed nice and flat, and I did press this with an iron as I was basting on the table as well. So yeah, I think maybe fusible and pins might be a winning combination. As for table basting, that's a game changer for me. I'm really glad I've got the space to do that in here now. Taping the backing to the table was definitely the way forward, and everything's turned out really nicely. So I will be sure to show you the quilts absolutely finished in another video in the future when I do the binding. But for now, that's all. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again soon with something else. Take care. Bye bye.